Sigurd Neubauer is a non-resident fellow at the Gulf International Forum and joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for your time. Sigurd, I want to ask, the news that these 50 fighters are being allowed safe evacuation, it's an interesting development, but will it actually bring the Houthis to the table in Sweden?
This is certainly a welcome development, and we know that this push, which is spearheaded by the UN envoy, has been going on for at least a couple of weeks. Oman has hosted the UN envoy who has shuttled between Washington, Muscat, Riyadh, and Sana'a to try to get this peace set up before peace talk assume. So the fact that we're even discussing this issue, which previously was off limits, is in itself a diplomatic victory, at least for now.
Is this enough to make sure that peace talks happen? I mean, after all, in September, the Houthis refused to actually even get on the plane.
Well, what happened in September was that it was unclear whether the Houthis would be allowed to return to Yemen after the proposed peace talks at the time, and that was a sticking point that prevented the talks from taking place altogether. What is different now is that the message has been received in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, and that is that the incoming American Congress, which will be spearheaded by the Democrats, will not continue to accept business as usual. That is to say that now that American congressmen have begun debating whether or not America should withdraw from its limited role within the Yemen war, that message has been received in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, which also helps explain why we're now seeing a new momentum to accelerate these peace talks.
Sigurd, you speak about this momentum and developments over the last few weeks. Would you classify the Khashoggi incident as one of those developments, and just how has that changed the playing field here in Yemen?
It has absolutely changed the playing field because it's understood now in Washington, first of all, what happened to Jamal Khashoggi and how the events leading up to that transpired. That's the first aspect. And after those details became an American foreign policy issue that has generated intense scrutiny from the media and from lawmakers, the debate then shifted to the humanitarian catastrophe that Yemen has now become. So all of a sudden, these two issues have been interconnected, which again adds to this momentum.
Well, Sigurd, I'm wondering, we've seen various different developments over the course of the duration of this conflict. Is this a watershed moment for Yemen, or should we be treating it with cautious optimism?
We should always have cautious optimism, because I think that the first results that we would have to look at is whether or not these peace talks take place. And whether or not they will be aborted last minute. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is, if they do indeed take place, we will expect some sort of resolution between the Houthis and the United Nations and the Saudis over whether the UN will take over the management of the port of Hodeidah to help bring in humanitarian supplies into Yemen. So that is, if that is achieved, then the rest of the peace process will be on good tracks. But that's the first challenge, if and when the peace talks take place.
Sigurd Neubauer in Washington, D.C., thanks so much for your time.